Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
This Shabbat is a special Shabbat. We, of course, celebrate America's 250th anniversary, and it's also a Shabbat. But I want to connect today the Jewish independence and the American independence and how they relate and how they complement each other. They're not always the same, but they definitely stem from the same place because we are a Judeo-Christian culture. America is definitely a Christian, uh, originated from Christianity and from Christian people or theists, but even if they were theists, they came from a Christian background, of course. um, to be educated in for centuries, including Shakespeare or any real writer in the West, you had to be educated biblically too. So the Bible is not was not really outside of our realm of everyday life. So America is definitely founded on Christian values, and of course, Christianity is founded on Jewish values. So it really is a Judeo-Christian country. So I think it would be fascinating to look at the connections of that. But I want to say something before that. 250 years is a long time, is a uh, great milestone and accomplishment to keep a republic. And just like Benjamin Franklin said, it's a republic if you can keep it. So we kept it at least for 250 years now, and hopefully for many more centuries. But I want to just give it a context a little bit. 250 years in the history of the world is really a minute or maybe 10 minutes. If you think about the Jewish Commonwealth, the Jewish temples, that's how we historify, I guess, if there's a word like that, put this in history, the timelines of Jewish history. We divided to first temple and second temple. So of course, Judaism or Abraham came 1,500 years before or 2,000 years really, before the temples, but 1,500 before the first temple. But if you think about it, each temple, Jewish temple, stood for over 400 years. So the first temple stood for 410 years, and the second temple for 420 years. There was a destruction in between of 70 years, a gap. But also before the temple was established itself, the first one, we already had 300, 400 years of commonwealth, of Jewish commonwealth. The temple was not built right away as the Israelites crossed the Sea of Reeds or came into the land. They established the tent of meeting in the desert, and that was the movable temple. But when we count the temple years, it's really the temple of King Solomon who built it in about 1,000 BC, and then it lasted for 410 years. So to put it in context, that 250 years is a long time and a very good milestone, but we can never rest on our laurels and say, we got 250 years under our belt, and so that means we've succeeded, we've arrived. Jewish history, and of course, his general history of empires show us that there's a rise and there's a fall.
Definitely. Even now in America, look, things are
Yeah,
going crazy.
absolutely. So we have to always be on guard. This is not a one-time thing. And any successful business that I've ever been to or been associated with, or any organization that was successful, it was successful because of its maintenance, because of its management, ongoing management. I compare it to our body. If you don't go to the dentist or if you don't brush your teeth every night, don't be surprised if you have cavities, and you're gonna have all these problems. So maintenance is key. So, like in the military, for example, this is why I think it's very important for kids to join the military, and even if they're not in combat, but to have that routine and that education that you have to get up every morning and start with um, making your own bed. So it starts there, and then take care of yourself, and then start your day. So America is the same, and the issue with the three phases of empire is that they build, they saturate, and then they start falling. And the fall begins when people become so decadent and they don't really feel that they need to do anything to be successful, and they don't activate, and they don't keep that muscle of building and maintaining. And a lot of times, as happens now in America and in other countries that have the average life quality rises, we tend to hire other people to do our work. So all the kind of what we say, the hard labor jobs are done with other people. So that is really the beginning of the fall, in my opinion. It's not just my opinion, but the Bible tells us that the meek shall inherit the land. And what it means is, if you hire someone else to work the land, literally be the farmer, be the person who maintains your land, they will know how to do it. You will forget how to do it, and then they, by default, will inherit the land. So never think that just because you're an American, you were born American, you shouldn't be, washing dishes or being a farmer or maintaining a building. That's really, I think, that where it starts sliding. In Israel, I would say the same kind of process is happening when all the labor workers, the builders, the farmers, all these are people who are foreigners, or the people that we bring from either from like the West Bank, or actually literally bring from other countries. So that, I think, is the most important lesson, and I'm going to connect it to where both Jewish and American liberties begin, and they begin in Egypt. They begin in the Israelites leaving Egypt. The story of the Israelites leaving Egypt encapsulates everything in it. First of all, even before Pharaoh let them go, of course, reluctantly, the reason he didn't leave, he didn't want to let them go, and then even after they left, he pursued them. and wanted to bring them back because he said, who is going to wash our dishes? Who is going to build our pyramid? They didn't know how to do anything. They were so reliant on slavery that when the slaves left, then they didn't know what to do. Now, even before they enslaved the Israelites, when Pharaoh said, these people are now becoming very strong, these Israelites, they flourish in the land, and what will happen if one day there'll be a war and they'll join our enemies? And then it says, and this is the key in the last part of his argument, and he said, and they will leave the land. They will come out of the land. Ve'alu min haaretz, and they will come out of the land. So you can also interpret that they will come up and they will overtake the land. But for most commentators, and really when you look at the language, it really his anxiety was that they will leave the land, because he knew that they're not from this land. They knew that the Israelites came from somewhere else, and they do have aspirations to go back to where they came from. So that was his fear, because you can say maybe like in America, the Israelites were before they were the labor workers. Maybe they were their accountants and their lawyers and their anything that they relied on for the orderly function of the state. Then they were afraid that they would leave. So this is the key to understanding not just our freedom leaving oppression, but we have to look back, because in the key in liberty and maintaining liberty is to maintain the two sides of liberty, is the freedom but also the responsibility. So these two sides, once you lose one of them, then it's off balance, and then you lose that that equilibrium that a human being needs to have in order to fulfill their destiny. The idea that we have an unalienable rights in America started in leaving Egypt, when God told the Israelites, he said, you are a holy nation and a nation of priests. You are a holy people and a nation of priests. What it means is not just that I'm putting you on a pedestal. It means that you are a holy nation. So holy nation, you are designated for something. You have rights. You have these unalienable rights, that everybody is created in the image of God. And a nation of priests means that everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a priest that is serving in the temple, or you're a Levi, you're in the priestly family or the priestly tribe. That's not what it means. There's a designated tribe within the Israelites to administer the temple, but everybody is a priest. You're a nation of priests, which means that we all have the responsibility of making sure that this is going to work. This organization is going to work. I have to say, when I went to Japan last August, I really felt it. The idea of nation of priests, because you can see in Israel, everybody has of course, the idea of that we all have to contribute to go to the military, but and of course to defend Israel. But not everybody, when you walk around or in discussions, you don't always feel that. But in and in America too, most people, yes, you feel it that they have the American spirit. They want to strive forward and build and move with the upward mobility, but you don't feel it everywhere. You don't feel it when you walk into a store and the clerk, the person is nice to you, is that they have this pride of their work. They, sometimes it feels like they're just there until they get a better job. But in Japan, it was incredible. It was the every person, every job that you walk into a store, you get on a bus, on the train, they are 120% there, and they're courteous and they do their job perfectly. So they were all part of this, and the sidewalks are clean, and people are don't yell and shout, and um, it's just the feeling of the land. It's not just individuals, and that's really where we should strive to be. Um, so this idea that we get the inalienable rights, but we get also the responsibility that comes with it. So if you walk on the street and you see a piece of garbage, something, you should pick it up. If you see something, say something. If you see something, someone behaves badly, you should say something. So at the end, freedom and liberty is not just a freedom from, it really is freedom to or for a certain mission. The one of the most beautiful interpretations of in the Bible about the Ten Commandments, the Torah tells us that the Ten Commandments were engraved on the two tablets. It was something that, in a sense, was supposed to be as a blueprint that you can't really change. It's like a blueprint of a house. You can't really. I mean, you can if you want to destroy the house or create a new house. But if you have a house, you have a blueprint, and you have the rooms, and you have the structure of the house. Then within the house, you can put different furniture, you can paint in different colors, but you can't really change the blueprint. So the Ten Commandments are the blueprint to the Israelite society, and what gives it its shape. So the Talmud tells us, it's very beautiful, to read the word engraved in Hebrew, charut, as the same word as cherut, which means liberty. And actually, the word for the name for the Statue of Liberty in Hebrew is pesel, statue, pesel hacherut, the Statue of Liberty. So what it means that in order to keep the liberty, you have to engrave certain rules. So law and order, right, are the foundations of the liberty, and that's an ongoing process. And how do we know that it's an ongoing process, that maintenance? Because at the end of the Torah, Moshe tells us what is the fundamental purpose of a human being and a society. What is it? Justice, justice shall you pursue. And justice, justice shall you pursue means to take care of the weakest link in your society. This is the reason the society, the Egyptian society, or the any society that becomes very fat, and it stops exercising, right? Physically, mentally, spiritually. That is really the beginning of the decline, is that they don't take care of the weak link. So the weak link in Egypt was the slave. But the weaker you were, the more advantage they would take of you. The Israelite society and of course by projection, the American society is a society that understands that we need to take care of our weak links of the society, because anything is as strong as its weakest link. So if we leave people on the street and let them deteriorate, they will fester drugs and prostitution and crime and all that. So it's like the body. You have to maintain it so it doesn't develop sickness. So in before we continue with this, maybe some of the connection to where we are with the Torah, with Parashat Pinchas, is that's kind of the essence. The essence is that liberty comes with responsibility and maintenance and taking care of the weakest link in our society. Okay. Now, there's a way that our parasha today can shed another light in that sense. We have this man called Pinchas, and the context of Pinchas, of what we read about him now, really starts at the end of the last week's parasha, that tells us that it was Parashat Balak, and what happened was the Israelites are about to enter the land, and all those nations around are fearful. They really are afraid that the Israelites just come and wipe them off. So they try to curse them. They knew that militarily they won't be able to win against them. So they try to do it in a spiritual way. And then they devised this thing about sending the Midianite women as almost as to seduce the Israelites, the men, the military men, and in general the men, to seduce them, and they would come and sleep with them, but also then to seduce them to worship their idols. And the Torah describes in a way that it says that they have publicly before God, they angered God because they attached themselves to Baal Peor. Baal Peor was the worst type of idol worshiping, because it was sexual, but it also, the word Baal, of course, is owner. So it was like their owner. But Peor is the word Peor means to prostitute yourself, to open up and do really very bad things in front of that, without getting into it, in front of that statue, Baal Peor. And that was the worst idol worshiping. And of course, what incensed God the most is idol worshiping. And definitely when it comes with promiscuity, God hates promiscuity, and they knew that, and they said, if if we cause the Israelites to fail in their sexuality and their idol worshiping, then God will get mad at them, and that's how they're going to lose. So that's what they do. They seduce them. They seduce them sexually. They seduce them with their idol worshiping, and God becomes angry at the people and sends a plague among the people, and many thousands of people die. 24,000 people die in this plague. It reminds us another plague, if you remember, the students of Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 of them died, and that's why we have the Lag BaOmer, when we say that the 33rd day of the Omer, up until then, the students of Rabbi Akiva died because they didn't respect each other. So it's all connected, but 24,000 people died in that plague. That was the end of last week's parasha. So then there was one person. He was a zealot. He was, but in a good way. Again, it's some people would say not in a good way, because he was such a his zealotry maybe caused people to die, but he's in a sense saved a lot of people from dying further in the plague. So what did he do? He took, there was a woman, and a man and a woman, that came in front of Moses in the temple, in the tent of meeting, and they literally in front of Moses and all the people. It says, just then a certain Israelite man came and brought a Midianite woman. Right? The Midianite women seduced them, so he decided to bring that Midianite woman to the tent of meeting. He brought her over to his companions, in the sight of Moses and the whole Israelite community, who were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So what did he do? He literally engaged in sexual act with that Midianite woman in front of Moses and the tent of meeting. So Pinchas, when Pinchas, son of Elazar, son of Aaron, he was the grandson of Aaron, the high priest, saw this, he left the assembly, and taking a spear in his hand, he followed the Israelite man into the chamber and stabbed both of them, the Israelite man and the woman, through the belly. And then the plague against the Israelite was checked. So what happened? God was angry at the people. He brought a plague. And then what happened with that man and woman? Why was it so terrible that Pinchas said, I have to do something about it. I have to stop this. And he killed that man and the woman as they were engaging in the sexual act. The commentators tell us that it's one thing, and this is totally related to what we're talking about, the liberty and the maintenance and the responsibility of each person in a free society to take action or take responsibility. What Pinchas saw is that this man, that we will learn about his name and who she was too, the Midianite woman in our parasha this week, what they did, they were trying to erase the engravement of those 10 commandments. They were trying to erase the blueprint of the house. They were trying to change the Constitution. That's what they were trying to do. It's one thing to break the law in your house, which of course it's God doesn't like that, and of course there's a consequence to that. But there's another thing to say, I want to now bring this promiscuity, this violation to the public sphere. And not only that, I want to make it legal now. So I have to say, a lot of times in the conversation of gay marriage, this was not that I think it's exactly the same, but it was the argument from the more conservative side was used exactly here, because they said it's one thing if people do what they do in their house, don't ask, don't tell, or even if you get equal rights to gay people, but to call it a wedding now and to bring it to the public sphere and to make it legal, then you're trying to change something in the foundation, something fundamental in society. So we can continue to debate that, but I'm just presenting those arguments. So but maybe gay marriage is not so outrageous that we can't really relate to this example. Although when the conversation started about it, even Obama, who was nobody can blame him for not being a liberal, was against it. So this is we see also that how these ideas can progress. But let's say somebody would come to Congress and say, I want to pass a law that bestiality is legal, that I can marry my dog, and I can not only that, I can engage in sexual activity with my animal. And then he would do it and come in front of Congress and do it. So the reason that somebody very powerful needed to stop this is because the man and the woman who engaged in that were very powerful. So it's one thing if somebody from, a man on the street would come and to Congress and say, I want to have this law of bestiality, let's say. No, nobody's going to take them seriously. But if somebody, the vice president of the United States and the Queen of England both would come together and say, no, we think it's a good idea and we want to establish this as the law, then that makes a big difference. And they had the power to do that, or at least the power to either coerce or to convince the people to do that. So that's the case with this couple. So in our parasha, when we begin, it says that God spoke to Moses saying, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my wrath from the Israelites by displaying among them his passion for me. And the word passion for me is the word for jealousy. I would translate it as jealousy, because the word jealousy, God says to us many times in the Torah that he is a Elkanah. He's a jealous God. He's a spouse. He married us, and he's jealous. So if we go with other people, so to speak, right? If his spouse, his wife, goes with other men, then he would be jealous as a spouse. So he said, I was jealous here, and my jealousy caused my anger, and my anger caused the plague. But Pinchas, who saw that grave sin here, and discretion and the desecration, then he acted. He saw something and he took responsibility. Because if he wouldn't have done it, it's like letting the Constitution being changed or violated, and then it's not a republic that we can keep anymore. So it's interesting that we read this parasha on this Shabbat at this time. And as someone who likes to look at timing, of course, and connection, not just me, but when we relate to God, the way God speaks to us in this world, to know God's communication with us, because for the most part, God is not audible right now to us, and he appears in different ways. Many ways. One of the ways is the timing, when things come together in a way that you would say naturally, it's a coincidence. But of course, we don't believe in coincidences. So just this timing of the 250th anniversary that falls on a Shabbat, and Shabbat Pinchas, which is really about keeping the law, keeping the Constitution, not just on the street, but in Congress, in the House of Representatives, the Ohel Moed. When every time the Torah says it happened in the entrance of the tent of meeting, it means that it happened in where Moses was sitting, and the courts and the judgment happened. So this is really very, very important. So now it's important to see what was the reward that Pinchas received from God as a result. So God said, "Say therefore I grant him my pact of friendship." So pact in Hebrew is shalom. So it's really the peace of friendship, or the friendship of peace, or the covenant of peace. I think that probably the best translation would be the covenant of peace, because brit is a covenant, brit, and shalom is peace. So a covenant of peace. So if I take now all three components that we have been speaking about, one is the Israelites' liberty, the American liberty, and the act of Pinchas. What is the commonality of all that? If you keep my ways, God always tells us that if you keep my ways, you will be a peaceful society, and nobody will harm you, and nobody will cause you to fear. So this is the covenant of peace, means that that it doesn't necessarily mean that you will sit idly, or you'll just sit quietly at home and sip margarita and be just look at the sunset all day. That's not what it means. What it means, shalom, the word shalom in Hebrew comes from the word shalem, being integrated, being peaceful, but whole. Shalem, be a whole person. So you can be actually at war, but you will be you're whole. You're a whole person, because even when you engage in war, you can engage in war with certainty, with knowing that this is a mandatory war. You have to engage in that war. So it doesn't mean, war doesn't necessarily mean that it's the opposite of that covenant of peace. Of course, ultimately, it is that there's no wars anymore, and nations will not lift sword against other nations, and the lions will lie with the lamb. Yes, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be from that moment on, because we know that from that moment there were many wars and throughout history. But what it means that if you understand that concept, you will be a whole person. So we can see that in societies too, in the Israeli society, the American society. For me, it's not just because I live in the split screen of Israel and America. I think that they're unique, but because I really believe that there's something about Israel and something about America that stem from the same blessing too, because they are, as we started, they are the Judeo-Christian hold to the Judeo-Christian values, those biblical values that God is telling us about, and they will bring us peace. So you see that, for example, in Israel, I don't remember the last time there was peace, really. There was always either ceasefire. I think Israel lives under ceasefire since 1948. Either it's war or real engagement in fire, or there's a ceasefire. So the peaceful periods in between were really never totally quiet and peaceful. We always had to be on guard, but there was ceasefire in a sense. But Israelis, you can tell there's something about, and especially I would say observant Jews who live in Israel, they have the sense of wholesomeness, the sense of assuredness, assurity, that they stand for something. They're not that even if it's painful now or it's not peaceful, but there's something at the core of our society that at the end will show peace, will bring peace. Jerusalem, the word Jerusalem means they will see peace. They will see wholesome. They will see wholeness. So this is really where all three are converging. It's a journey. So the 250-year anniversary of America is we're celebrating an amazing milestone, but it really a is celebrating, and we have to understand that we're celebrating a milestone in the journey, and it's not something that we can now rest. So this is the kind of the bringing together all three ideas. And the bottom line is that freedom comes with hard work. And if you look at an organized room, it takes a long time to organize a room. So when somebody comes into, a nice looking house, they have to understand that a lot of work has gone into it. So there's something about many people in the world that want to come to America, to immigrate to America, because they see a beautiful home, an organized home. Again, it's not perfect, but it is an organized home, and then they're attracted to it. And this is what we have to remember, and to remember that we have to protect it. We have to protect our borders. We have to protect who is coming into the land. And when they come to the land, that they should be integrating and contributing and really protecting the value of what we have. Shabbat Shalom and happy Independence Day.